Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome to another episode of Poupart and Omar, All Dolphins podcast on YouTube, Miami Dolphins Insider, wherever you get your fine podcasts on the Fans First Sports Network.
We'll call
Today,
it the Poop Report.
no. It's a team, man. Poupart and Omar, P-N-O-O-M-P,
Yes.
whatever. What's today? Training camp 6, practice 5.
Let's not complicate things. It's just practice 5.
Practice. Okay, fine. Practice 5. Whole lot of David Long Jr. today, right, Omar?
Oh yeah. The physicality. You know, I kind of hyped up the first day of pads. It's one of my favorite days of training camp. I guess I'm gonna have to push it to the second day of training camp. I like the day when they're sick of each other and they start hitting each other.
Mm.
And maybe in my romanticized thought process, that becomes that first day of pads. But also, let's keep in mind that Mike McDaniel has now this 3-day practice, day off kind of routine. So they're probably not frustrated and sick of training camp yet, but it was a little bit mild for my taste.
No, it was. And before we discuss the practice furthermore, let us explain why Mike McDaniel has gone 3 days of practice, day off, 3 days of practice, because what in an NFL regular season work week, the teams practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they have walkthrough meetings on Saturday and then the game. So Mike McDaniel wants to simulate things to look as much as the regular season as possible, which is why they're going 3 on, day off, 3 on, day off. For us in the media, I can't speak for you. I personally love it. I didn't like that. There were times when you go strict 6 straight days at the start of camp before your first day off, and it's like gets tiring. So,
Yes.
I'm sure everybody out there.
Most teams would at least go 4 straight days. Usually they're 5 on and then a day off. Mike is like 3 on, day off, 3 on, day off. And this is throughout the entirety of training camp, which is a little bit weird for me to see.
No, correct. The new CBA, hold on. The new CBA is a maximum of 5 straight days, just to point that out.
Yes, but the one thing I think I'm learning about Mike McDaniels is he's a very sports science driven guy. Mm-hmm. So he's figured out or has a formula, or maybe the sports science team has a formula, what's going to lead to the least amount of soft tissue injuries. And that was one of the things I asked him about. And also his rotation, where I found it a little odd, where the backups take the first snaps of 11 on 11, and then we get into the team period. I understand players are also rotating in units. So sometimes you'll see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle paired with Skylar Thompson or Mike White. Yes, I said that in order per the way I intended it to.
You don't go there. Don't go there. Go ahead.
And then we'll have Tua with David
Davis and Coleman. I don't even know his first name.
Yeah, it's like David Davis and Cedric Wilson Jr. And I get it. It's about developing the overall chemistry, because you never know who's going to have to play with who's going to play where. It's honestly confusing when you're watching practice. I'm used to knowing that if you change up your rhythm of practices, I'll pick it up in day 3. This is ultra confusing to me. And it's still
he's not trying to make it simple for us simple folk in the media, it had to do with reps. I listened to his answer and I was kind of like semi confused, but bottom line is it has to do with not getting players too many consecutive reps, because certain players work with certain units. It was very confusing. Since you did bring up, in a very nasty way, I might add, Mike White versus Skylar Thompson, can we not agree that Mike White's, since the fans have been in the stands, whether that's a complete coincidence or what, is having a pretty decent week of practice?
Oh yeah. And I like the way that he explained. He explained that, like, I'm learning this, and this is different. It's unique. It's a challenge. And then we talked to Skylar Thompson today, who basically is like, I got this. First year I didn't know the playbook. Now I know it. Now I'm starting to get into my groove. And you could kind of sense that Mike White is maybe closing the gap. It's 2 days, I'm not giving.
I'm sorry. Time out. Time out. Did you just say Mike White is closing the gap on Skylar Thompson? Are you serious?
I didn't stutter.
Wow. And my ears are not deceiving me. So you're basically saying that Skylar Thompson had a clear, significant edge over Mike White. That's basically,
Yeah, I mean, that's common knowledge. Would you not agree with that?
common knowledge.
Would you disagree with that?
I would tell you that, are we talking about in terms of pecking order, in terms of performance at camp?
Yeah.
I
don't think it's even, I don't think it was even close until
in terms of performance at camp. Yes, Skylar was better in the first week.
And OTAs. I throw in OTAs. And
okay, man, I don't remember OTAs. I'm getting old. My memory is fading here. Yeah, probably Skylar had, but again, I don't know. To me, I like Mike White's work today, and I like Mike White's yesterday, and Skylar was okay. He
threw an interception. You can't have a good day when you throw an interception.
So yeah, okay, so hold on, basically, because I'm gonna use that logic against you. So then Tua had a really bad day at Baltimore last year because he threw not one, but he threw 2 interceptions. So there we go. Okay, so those who thought Tua had a good,
you could rebound if you could throw six touchdowns. Yeah, sure.
You just said you have a bad day if you throw an interception.
I mean, I'm talking about in practice. There are 2 interceptions in practice. There's 2 interceptions and 2 touchdowns in training camp so far. Correct? Well, not red zone work.
You're correct. Not red zone work. Barrios and who's the other one? Anyway, while you think, let me make this point that Skylar Thompson, regardless of his performance today, got dinged pretty bad by a yeah, I'm going to call it a drop by Jalen Waddle on the deep pass in the right sideline, where yeah, ideally he made Waddle get off his feet to get to the ball, but it still wound up going right through his hands, and it's a catch. And if Jalen Waddle wants to get that next step to elite category, because no, I don't think he's an elite wide receiver just yet. He has elite speed, but he drops too many passes for my liking to be considered elite. That's a catch he has got to make. And you're making faces. Go ahead, rebuttal.
I mean, the number one culprit of drop passes in training camp is Tyreek Hill. So
we sure about that? Because I have Jalen with more drops than Tyreek, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably close. I don't. I'm not going to overly panic about Jalen Waddle dropping passes. I don't. I honestly don't like all this receivers work with everybody kind of thing. Like, it's not for me.
Here's the thing. No, the part I don't like, for example, I'm okay with, I get the concept, and I'm okay with the concept of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle working with Mike White and Skylar Thompson, because if something happens to Tua, that's who they're going to work with. I don't get the idea of having David Davis, for example, no offense, or somebody else way down the depth chart working with Tua, because under no realistic scenario is that ever going to happen in a game.
Thank you. We're making the same point.
Okay.
And maybe you're going to get a better evaluation of a player, especially if they're running the right routes, or, all of this. I'm not going against what Mike McDaniels is doing, because he's clearly thought this out. He's got a Yale education. He's smarter than me. It's we'll figure out if this works. What I am suggesting is, you could be hindering Tua's chemistry level with his weaponry, and ultimately that should be top priority number 1. Yes, no, maybe so.
Sure. Again, to me, I just simply, and I'm also not quite as smart as Mike McDaniel. I'm close, but not quite. I don't get the point. I mean, it's, if you want to build the confidence of David Davis and whoever else, that's fine. Braylon Sanders, perfect.
He's made some plays though. I like Braylon Sanders. I like David Davis too.
Well, today, if we're going to talk wide receivers, today was more about Erik Ezukanma, who rebounded from a bad play at first, because he was, the interception was on Skylar Thompson, who threw behind him going across the middle. But if we're going to be fair about it, not like Ezukanma did a great job of trying to break up the pass and play defender on the play once it was clear there was no completion. But he rebounded very, very well after that.
Yeah, you taught me out of putting him in my top performers list. So you want to praise him today. I mean, but what I like about Eazy-E is I thought he did well last training camp. And part of that was because he had developed chemistry with Skylar Thompson. And this is another factor in this whole rotation thing. Skylar Thompson, I've learned he's a quarterback who likes to lean on guys that he's comfortable with. Well, if you keep switching up who he's working with, he's not getting comfortable with anybody. Now, in time, but that's everybody. Like, that's everybody is impacted by that. Hell, we're even looking at defensive guys. I can't tell you how they're rotating in their defense. Sometimes it'll be first team D line and third team cornerbacks. And you just got to figure it out.
See, I haven't seen that. I'll be honest. To me, from what I've seen, is they've rotated entire defenses, the 1 defense, the 2 defense, and the 3 defense, without obviously saying who's where.
No, sometimes you'll see Cam Smith and Tino Ellis in there.
Not supposed to make names. Who's playing with what unit? Come on, we got to respect the rules.
I'm just saying. I mean, but the whole point of this is, like, everybody's rotating in with everybody. So you can't sit here and say, unless you'll see Tua with the first team line. That's about the only consistency that you'll get.
On offense, I completely agree on offense. On defense,
defense too.
I haven't noticed. I certainly not today.
You don't always see the first team. You don't always see the first team line going against the first team defensive line. Sometimes you'll see.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant what I've seen is the first team DBs. I've been working with the first team defensive line. That I noticed that today. It wasn't interchangeable. We're talking DBs. I noticed in your stock report for alldolphins.com, you dinged Cam Smith for not coming up with a couple of interceptions. And I was like, to me, like the kid,
I'm nitpicking.
A couple more passes broken up. And if we're at the point where we're dinging him for not coming up with picks, that's pretty good.
No, he probably leads the team in pass breakups. It's clear he's in position. He's great at knocking down passes. It is his forte. If he started this season, he might lead the NFL in pass breakups. My question to you is, do pass breakups get you paid?
Dude, if Byron
just
Jones,
answer the question.
No, there's your answer. Byron Jones. Yes, it gets you paid. How many picks?
Oh, damn!
How many picks did Byron Jones have with Dallas before he came to Miami?
Fair, touche, well played. Absolutely well played. Maybe they do get you paid. I like him. I think he's done well. I think he's without a doubt, the top rookie performer. But the point that I'm trying to make, they went out and they signed Eli Apple. We don't know what contract he gave because it's not reported to the league yet. When we do know, I'll let you know. But they signed him to compete for a starting spot. Then you got Noah, who's, saying, don't forget about me. I've kind of forgot about him, but he's there.
He's holding his own in practice.
Huh?
He's holding his own in practice.
He's not getting embarrassed, which is, hey, this is the first year we're not seeing Noah get picked on daily. Is that correct?
Without question.
So, no, I haven't noticed Noah at a practice all in 5 practices. That's good for Noah. Like, you'd notice Noah from day one in the past. Like, they're picking on Noah. I don't have a problem.
Yep.
I haven't seen him get beat. Don't see him be in position to make plays and don't make plays. Nobody's throwing the ball his way. I got no issues. So, but the point that I'm making is, if Cam Smith wants to raise his hand and say, that's my job, Jalen Ramsey's spot, that's my job. How do you do that? You come down with interceptions, right? You deliver interception. I promise you, he delivers an interception in practice. He's starter tomorrow. That's the way this thing works here.
Not if he is getting beat all the time. I mean, I think you'd prefer having really good coverage consistently than very sporadic coverage, but then you come up with a pick here and there.
Okay.
And tell me if you're with me on this line of thinking. My thinking on Eli Apple is pretty basic, is that ideally the Dolphins would love if Cam Smith or Noah Benogany showed them they need to be the starter. And if those two options fail, Then they have Eli Apple, who's been a solid NFL starter, who probably was out of the league until now because of his Twitter escapades. Fair?
Fair. I think Mike McDaniel, I think if we're going to look at this from Chris Greer's standing and point of view, Chris Greer is going to play the draft pick with the future, the draft pick with cheap contract. So that's Cam Smith. If you're going to look at this from Mike McDaniel's point of view, he's going to play the guy who performs the best in practice, and the guy who his position coach, which is Sam Madison, is the most comfortable with. And I don't know who that is right now. If you're going to ask me to stack them up, I'd have to put Cam Smith as cornerback number 2 because he's got the pass breakups. Even though he's allowed the only touchdown in practice, he has the pass breakups. Nobody else has the pass breakups.
Could the argument not be made, though, that he has the pass breakups because the guys are throwing at him because receivers are open, and Noah doesn't because nobody's throwing at him? Have you seen any balls thrown in the direction of Noah's guy? I haven't.
No, you're right. So, you're right. And that's something I got to look closely at because Noah's invisible to me at practice. I always say, if you're invisible as an offensive lineman and as a cornerback, you're doing your job. I don't know. I haven't noticed Austin Jackson once in practice in 5 days.
Yep, same here. And this is where they're going back to the DBs. This is where they're going to look back at the film and they're going to isolate and do a little session of nothing but watching what Noah's doing, and they'll know the answer. We have too many things to look at, and we don't have,
that's fair.
We can't look at that tape.
Yeah,
practice, so.
I mean, but I think also, when you're looking at this offense and you're looking at the zone coverage, primarily Tua's throwing to spots. Tua's throwing to there are about 1, 2, 3, 4 zones that Tua is throwing to on a regular basis. And if Noah's not in those zones, the play's not coming his way. So maybe he's doing his assignment. So I honestly don't know. Without the benefit of the replays,
right?
We can't tell. People have to understand when we watch practice, it's 3 sets of eyes generally looking at one play from different angles, perspectives, and then we come to a consensus about what we feel like happened.
Correct. And sometimes we can't do that sometimes, actually.
Like that sack that I said Tua rode out the wave and you just said bullshit. And see, I mean, it was a Dolphins highlight. That's all I'm saying. You saw the highlight, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I was more referring to the play today. There was a long pass to Tyreek Hill near the sidelines. I don't remember if it was Tua or Skylar Thompson who threw it. And it appeared to me from where I sat, it was on the opposite field. It was near the sideline. It appeared to me that Hill reached out with one hand to try to get it. Couldn't come down with a catch. There was another reporter who thought he
put
both hands. So this is where I'm saying we don't have the benefit of the replay there. And it's not something that's going to show up on the Dolphins social media account, so we won't know.
Correct. It a lot of it is subjective. I mean, even the sacks are subjective. I love.
Yeah, correct. Because Omar, that's pointed out here. Omar is like Oprah giving out sacks. You get a sack. You get a sack. You get a sack. There was one play today, and Christian Wilkins has been an absolute bear in training camp. Let me preface what I'm saying by saying this, but there was one play where he got by the offensive lineman, started running, and he ran. I don't know. He was maybe 3 yards away from Tua to the side, and immediately threw his hands up like, "I got the sack. That's it." And I'm like, dude, you gotta get a little bit closer if you're gonna, give yourself a sack on the play. But
he clearly beat the offensive lineman. It was like a free run at the quarterback. I don't know who the offensive lineman was, but yeah, it was.
You know what play I'm talking about, and it was like, come on, man.
See? Yeah. I felt like he should have celebrated first and then went and the thing I like about Christian is even when he beats a play like that, and let's say the quarterback throws the ball, he'll still run 20 yards downfield the other way, trying to act like he's going to go get the tackle. And he does that. And it's unique and weird, but it's Christian. And a lot of things are unique and weird about Christian.
No, he is unique and weird. And since we brought up Christian Wilkins, we're going to refer to a story for AllDolphins.com that, according to agent Drew Rosenhaus, during his weekly appearance on Sports Extra here in South Florida, said, I don't know exactly how he phrased it. You wrote the story, but basically,
Dolphins focus is we're not going to get a deal done for Sealer and Connor Williams. We're not close, and Miami's focus and attention is on getting a Christian Wilkins extension done. Now, I do believe Drew in terms of them not getting a deal done for Sealer and Connor Williams. I don't believe Drew in terms of their focus is on Christian Wilkins, because I think Dolphins feel like they got Christian Wilkins in a good spot, and whether he likes it or he doesn't, unless you're going to accept 75 cents on the dollar, which both me and you know, Christian Wilkins is not about to accept 75 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to get a deal done. I'm a skeptic in terms of them not getting a deal done. Name me the last defensive lineman the Dolphins have drafted that they've gotten a multi-year extension done for. I can tell you.
No, I agree. It's Paul Soliai. But the thing is, this is, again, we're talking like 15 years ago, and I made the argument of like, when's the last time they drafted a really, really good defensive tackle? So, I mean, there's a reason why they haven't
Olivier Vernon.
Okay, and Olivier Vernon was asking for kind of semi-ridiculous money.
Considering and Christian and was more productive as a sack guy, and Christian Wilkins is asking for even more money.
Yeah, except they play different positions, so that's apples and oranges.
Yeah, and I would pay the defensive end and not pay the defensive tackle.
I agree, but through 3 seasons, be honest, who's a better player? Regardless of
Olivier Vernon.
Then Christian Wilkins, really?
Yeah, no question. No,
I'll disagree, but okay.
No question. Olivier Vernon was a Pro Bowl player. When has Christian Wilkins been a Pro Bowl player?
Olivier Vernon never made the Pro Bowl with the Dolphins.
He made it with the Giants.
Correct, after he signed a ridiculous contract, and it was a lot of money that he.
Okay, sometimes you need a little marketing on your side. Same thing with Christian.
I agree.
The point I'm making is Christian is at. We won't give him double-digit sacks, but he's very close in 5 practices. I think he's good for a sack and a half per day. You will agree with that?
Sure.
Okay. If he starts delivering a sack and a half every 2 games in the NFL, good God, that price just went up. Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Correct.
And here's the thing. It was told to me by NFL defensive linemen that Christian is not going to fit into this scheme because Christian relies on slants, twists, stunts, games, whereas Vic Fangio's scheme is a head-on, me versus you, I'm going to push you into the quarterback kind of player. Now, I think what could be happening is either Vic Fangio, and I haven't paid enough attention, either Vic Fangio is flexible and adaptable and is adapting to the way Christian plays, which, based on what you're hearing from every defensive lineman, they're like, he'll let us do whatever we want to do as long as we make the play. And even Jerome Baker said that. Durham Smythe acknowledged that. He's like, these edges, they're just making stuff up, and as long as they make the play, they don't care. Which is why, everybody says the common thread with Vic Fangio's defense is everything looks the same, but it's not.
Right.
And before the snap, every goddamn thing looks the same. And I will acknowledge that. It like every snap looks the same.
Yep.
And if you're a quarterback, that's pretty complicated because you could snap the ball. And I think Durham said it. You snap the ball, you're a receiver, a tight end, you've made your reads based on what the safeties are doing, and then the safety changes at the last minute, you got to change your route. Now the quarterback has to be on the same page with what you're doing. That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
But getting back to the point, if they're allowing Christian to slant and stunt, okay, he might have a really good season. Now, I don't know what's happening on the D line, but and I'm not even going to blame the offensive line because I think they've done an adequate job for who they are, what they're doing, what they're responsible for. Like, I can't sit here and say Liam Eichenberg getting beaten up by Christian Wilkins is a bad thing, because shouldn't Liam Eichenberg get beaten up by Christian Wilkins?
No.
No,
Not on a consistent basis, not one-on-one, and which is going to bring me to where
one player is a fringe NFL starter, and the other is asking for 85 million a year. You don't think one should dominate the other?
Dominate. Well, then if that's the case, you need to find a new offensive lineman there. Sorry, Christian Wilkins should win more of the battles than Liam Eichenberg one-on-one. Sure, should not be completely one-sided. Otherwise, you got a problem on the offensive line.
And I'm not saying it is one-sided, because I don't think it is one-sided.
Okay, then no, I noticed the rep they were doing like the one-on-one. I know your favorite, the one-on-one.
I missed it. I got to be honest.
I know, but I didn't. And the first one was like the first one play I saw actually was Liam Eichenberg versus Christian Wilkins, and he just stood him up, and Wilkins went nowhere. And then the second rep they went at it, Wilkins kind of was able to get a little bit outside of him. I couldn't really tell exactly just how far back Eichenberg was able to push him. If it would have been one of those where the quarterback easily can step up to avoid him. And in that particular drill, Dan Feeney was great. One of the 3 reps that I saw, and then later in 11-on-11, I saw him get completely steamrolled by Zach Sealer. So just goes to show you win some, you lose some.
You know what I found interesting about Robert Hunt's discussion with the media? He said that drill heavily favors defensive linemen, and I was like, really? Because you know how we feel like the one-on-ones offense, wide receivers versus cornerback, heavily favors the wide receiver. I would think.
What was the rationale though? Because I wasn't there for Hunt, so
he's like, you don't have help. Oh yeah, I forgot you weren't there. You don't have help. And literally, they know what they're gonna do. They know that they get free reign of what they want to do. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what they're gonna do too. All you gotta do is just stop them and hold the fort for 4 seconds.
You also don't know what they're gonna do when in the regular season game. It's not like the pass rusher is gonna tell you, listen, I'm gonna go with a swim move here. I mean, and by the way, since we're talking offensive line, and you mentioned that the reason I wasn't there for Robert Hunt is because I went into the media room to write the story about Teron Armstead being activated off PUP. We're taping at 3:30 here. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but it's going to be announced. He was at practice today in uniform with the helmet, did not do anything in terms of practice, which he couldn't have done until he was activated from PUP. Here's the caveat to the whole thing, though. It's great news, obviously. Don't necessarily expect him to start practicing on a full-time basis tomorrow, because that's not going to happen. They're going to take it slow with him. Certainly, I'd be shocked if he played in a preseason game. He may, who knows how many practices he's going to take part in, but at the very least, he's off PUP. He can take part in walkthroughs. And it's one step that was needed to be taken for him to get ready for the start of the regular season.
I think, and this is just thoughts, one, I'm not playing Teron Armstead a second of exhibition season.
Agreed.
2, I think he'll get warmed up in practice next week. Not sure if he'll participate in team drills, but then when they hit that joint practice, That's next week. Joint practice is next week?
Yeah. Unless I'm losing my mind here, which
yeah, you're right. Tomorrow's the end of the week.
Next Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm unleashing him in joint practices.
No. By the way, the end of the week. Today's Monday, so no, it's not the end of the week. They have a full week of practice. They have the scrimmage practice at Hard Rock Stadium on Saturday. Joint practices next week. Considering the intensity of those joint practices, I'd be surprised if he took part in those against the Falcons next week. Houston the following week, maybe.
Yeah, Houston, yeah. And that'll probably be enough to get him ready for the season. But yeah, am I playing Teron? I'm not. Teron Armstead's in bubble wrap, but until the time I break the 53-man roster. Mm-hmm. Like, and you know how I feel about Xavier. I'm like, every day I look at Xavier in practice, and I'm like, what is he doing? Why? What's the point here? What are we trying to achieve?
Vic Fangio threw a flag on him for DPI.
Yeah.
Vic Fangio, no less than Vic Fangio threw that flag. And it was, if you saw the play, he got there early. I don't remember.
Yeah, Jerome Baker says sometimes he has no idea why. Jerome Baker, he's like, sometimes he throws a flag. We ask him why you threw the flag. He'd be like, I don't know. Which I
like it.
Like, I'm, but I'm so fascinated by Vic Fangio. I'm like
Yeah,
fascinated by everything he does.
yeah.
And he's got this, and how players say that he talks and treats them, and I'm just fascinated by it.
No, and
It's
I'm curious to see the scheme in the regular season too. I love like Brian Flores' scheme, which was different, but also involved disguise. His disguise was, I'm going to throw 8 guys near the line of scrimmage. You go ahead, you figure out how many are coming and who. And it was heavy pressure type of thing, and it worked really well at times. Didn't work so well last
heavy
year.
pressure, a lot of press. I think if you marry both schemes where it's heavy pressure and then zone, you could have something special. And that's where I think this Dolphins defense, they're used to playing the heavy pressure approach, but it's always man press behind it.
Also, you don't have the numbers. If you're sending extra guys, you don't have the numbers.
Yeah, but you could just backtrack. Like I saw plays today where Chubb is dropping deep, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like every day, every single day, there's something new that I'm seeing, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like I've seen now probably 8 different things on defense, and I'm like, oh, okay. And understand, I've watched practice for 20 years, football practices for 20 years. So if I'm sitting here watching in 5 practices, 8 new things I've never seen before, that's pretty damn good. And, I like the fact that he's this grizzled, savvy defensive coordinator that has forgotten more football than most people know. And I like that it also challenges Mike McDaniel, because you can't tell me that Friday's practice, Mike McDaniel was proud of himself or his unit. Like that was also on you too, Mike. Like, are you calling zone blitzers, zone beaters? And you got to. Now, if your line isn't prepared to pick up the blitzes, okay, that's on your O-line coach, that's on your offensive line. But when you see that they're doing it, you got to call things that beat it, correct?
Should be pointed out, though, if we're going to be honest and fair about this, at this stage of training camp, the defense logically should be ahead of the offense.
Absolutely. No question.
We're agreed on that. What else stood out today? I'm trying to think here real quickly. Go through. But I don't know. Kendall Lamb, your dude Kendall Lamb had a really good practice again. Looked very impressive.
I was almost out. Then he brought me back in.
Back in.
Yeah, the gray sweatpants. It looks good to me, and that's my swing tackle number 1. I'm not sure he's competing for the right tackle spot, because I definitely don't like him at right tackle. I'm not a big fan. But like he could get the job done. And I'm like, okay, I see it.
Been around for a minute, and there's a reason. Unless I'm mistaken, though, I think he has more NFL experience at right tackle than left tackle, even though you don't like him at that spot.
He says left tackle was his if you would have asked me when I came out of college, left tackle was my spot. Left tackle is what I played all throughout college. It's where I feel most comfortable. But he's like, I've been forced into so many different positions. I have to get comfortable. Like my job, my survival depends on my comfort level wherever I'm put at.
Yeah, because I think his experience is Houston and Cleveland. I think there are 2 of his stops, and he had like Joe Thomas in front of him early on in Cleveland, I believe, and then Houston would have had Laramie Tunsil.
He's pretty good, man, and I'm encouraged by what I see. Now, is he starter caliber? No. I'm curious to see what Isaiah Wynn does when he's finally thrown into the action. They bring back.
I didn't see him in 11 Offense.
He just got off the PUP. They're not going to bring you back and throw you in there and team stuff now. Maybe they do it next week. And I'm curious to see where he plays. Oh, the one thing I did want to point out is that padded practice. I always talked about 3 guys that padded practices matter to. Savon Ahmed, who always pulls a disappearing act. When we put the pads on, didn't notice him today.
I did. He had a couple of like decent runs up the middle.
No. Mitchell Agude, didn't even know if he practiced today.
Did not notice him either.
Disappeared. and Devon A-Chain. I don't know because I was out writing a story. I showed up for practice when 11 on 11 started. So I don't know if they did running back, wide receiver one-on-ones, which I was so excited to see. You didn't see that?
I did not. They if they did it, it would have been on the far field at the same time they were doing O-line, D-line, and then I didn't see
I
it.
pray that I didn't miss that day. I didn't miss it because I'm so anxiously excited to see A-Chain pass block.
You're
He
talking
had
about the backs on backers. They didn't. No, they didn't do that.
he had some inside runs that were okay. What I like about A-Chain is that he's so small, and this is not a disrespect, that he reminds me a lot of Mark Higgins, where he could hide behind the back.
Mark
Like
Higgs.
Mark Higgs. Yeah. He could hide behind the back. You can't see him. You really can't see him. And then he just pops out of the hole.
Miles
So
Gaskin's the one who had the big run today, actually.
yes, he
In the
did.
video outside.
Don't forget about Miles Gaskins. Don't I stopped counting him out after 2020 season when he became the starter and earned the starting spot. And anytime you ever say, okay, stick a fork in that guy, he resurrects himself. Hard worker.
Yeah.
I'm never counting him out. I've learned that. That's the reason why he's still around.
And this is where we should point out that Jeff Wilson Jr. did not practice for a second consecutive day, did not see Keon Crossan out there. And there was a third guy who was missing from practice who escapes me right now, and that's bad. And my apologies, but I can't think of it right now.
We also have Brandon Jones and Troy Williams getting a day off.
Correct. Yeah, they showed up for stretching with red jerseys and did not take part in anything. Here's a problem with Myles Gaskin, and I'm like you. He's like, you know, I think he's a guy who could be in the NFL for a while. He's one of those guys. But who does he beat out on this team? If you count Alec Eagle and among the running backs, Devon A-Chain, he's making the team. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr. That's 4 already. First of all, are you keeping 5? You're keeping 5. Is it really going to be Myles Gaskin over Savon Ahmed, who we saw last year jump ahead of Gaskin?
Hold on. Mostert, Wilson, A-Chain,
Ingold.
No, I don't count Ingold. Ingold's
okay. Then how many halfbacks are you keeping? You're not keeping 5.
I'm keeping 5.
5 halfbacks since
didn't they have 5 last year?
No, they had 4.
Yeah.
No, they had 4.
Mostert, Jeff Wilson, A-Chain, Gaskin. Oh damn.
And Ahmed. They're not keeping 5.
No, yeah. They didn't have A-Chain. They had I mistake A-Chain with Ahmed.
There you go.
Oh, okay. All right. I see what you're doing there. I can see it. Like, okay.
Something's
But
got to
I'm keeping
give.
5 this year.
You're really going to keep 5 wide receivers. I mean, 5 halfbacks. To that, I say 0 chance. Okay. We got about a minute left, and since we're talking roster projection, kind of, sorta, we got to do another a 2.0 at some point, both you and I, for alldolphins.com. I'm starting to think that Robbie Chosen may not be the slam dunk that you and I both thought he would be.
He's not even on my 53 right now.
Yeah,
I don't know what that's about, but he's barely ever even getting practice reps.
I know, that's weird. Very weird.
It is weird, but it is what it is. Like
story to follow in the coming days, right?
Definitely.
And we will do that tomorrow. We'll keep an eye out tomorrow, which is practice 6 on Tuesday before they have the day off on Wednesday. So for now, that's going to be it. He is Omar. I am Poupart. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.